I
Yeah.
think he
I'll
would
tell
have
you
been.
one thing though. I would have liked to see how Dennis Rodman would have used social media. To see, and I don't know if it would have helped him or not.
His life was already exposed, dude. He was basically
Exactly.
social media before it was real.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, growing up in Chicago, obviously watching, being able to watch him on TV like the rest of us, I was lucky. My dad, every now and then through work, was able to get some tickets. Not that we'd go all the time, but certainly it had been a handful of times to watch him play live. And then I forget what year it was. It was during one of the championship runs. And we were able to go to a playoff game and to experience, that atmosphere at the United Center as a kid was unbelievable. And to see what he meant, obviously, to not only the team but the city. I remember obviously watching the parades in Grant Park and the celebrations, and just thinking, man, that looks unbelievable. So yeah, just being able to be in the city, to see the hype and the buzz that he created was truly remarkable. So that part was, as a kid, dream come true. I mean, he was my sporting icon. So to see him and just to see how he approached the game, and then obviously this documentary gives certainly a behind the scenes look. And as now that we're older, you get much more of an appreciation for what he did as a competitor, as an athlete. And so that part was really cool.
Yeah, I think it was the same for me. I mean, I was born in 1983. Yeah, I was growing up a Sixers fan. So Dr. J and Charles Barkley were my guys. But then once I got to be about 6, 7, 8 years old, started the 90s, and Michael Jordan was kind of everything. I mean, I had all the tapes. Michael Jordan's Playground was something I watched over and over and over again. I don't know if you young guys have heard of that. And then obviously when he was on the Dream Team, it was huge. I have the Dream Team VHS too. I mean, all that stuff is still sitting in my parents' basement. The Jordan poster of him jumping from the foul line was on my bedroom wall. So it was huge. Basketball was really my first sport growing up. My dad was a coach, and I spent my whole childhood in gyms. So Jordan was everything. And whether it was his games that you're able to watch, or really for me, it was mainly watching all those tapes. It's incredible, because as you grow up, you think about, would any other athlete right now be able to put out a Michael Jordan's Playground type tape, where if you watch that, it's all of his peers talking about how incredible he is. And it's like, as good as LeBron is, and as good as, I don't know, Tom Brady is, I find it really hard that, their peers would marvel the way that they did to Michael. I think that the only comparison we would have would be Messi, maybe, where guys would just say he's unstoppable, he's the best, and enjoy it and laugh about it. You see Magic Johnson, you see all these guys talk about it, and they marvel at how good he is. So, yeah, I mean, Brad and I are the same age. It was all about, how important he was, and I was lucky enough to see him play once against the Sixers. And it was probably I think it was in that 97, 98 year, because it was Michael versus Allen Iverson, who was, my other guy growing up. But really loved the documentary. I feel like we could talk about it forever. There's so many ins and outs to it. But getting to see him as a person was the coolest thing. And a few things that stuck with me are how he talked about, winning has a cost and leadership has a cost. That was kind of the thing that stuck with me the most, because you could see how his relationship with his teammates was strained a lot. He expected perfection of everybody, and I think that in the end alienated him, but at the same time, it's what kind of made him a champion. Did you young guys, able to watch him, or what's your relationship to him before this?
I don't really have one, to be honest. I think, I'm not huge into basketball as you guys, of course, but I obviously know about, how influential he was to the game of basketball, and how big of a figure he is, of course. But I think just knowing that, after watching this documentary taking away the fact that, you know, greatness is a life mission. And like you said, it comes with a cost of others. And even just like watching him now during the documentary and seeing that he's still somewhat holding a grudge towards people. And when he was like talking about stuff, it was like, so I took it personal, you know, you kind of just see that
he still got it,
there's a lot of fuel to fire, right? Exactly. Just like you said,
even how sorry to cut you off, even how he made things up. You know what I mean? He made things up in his head just to like motivate himself, exactly. You know? It's like unbelievable.
Yeah. So it's just, I think his whole life evolved around sport. And even like, I think one of the biggest takeaways was like, if you think that what I do is wrong or doesn't motivate you, then don't do the same. You know, if you think it's wrong, then that's you. And it kind of shows you that not a lot of people will be on the same page with him in terms of you know, being that passionate about something or loving something to that extent, which maybe will come off as he disrespecting other people. But for him, it's like, you know, I want to win, but I want you to win. And if that means me pushing you until you're very uncomfortable, then so be it.
Yeah. I mean, how many teammates did he have that relationship with? I mean, Scott Burrell, right? I mean, the guy got crushed, right? But you could tell off the court. I mean, Michael, he was driving him to become better, but also had a great relationship. And I think that probably with Michael's personality was he didn't see Scott Burrell as a threat. And you can tell with the teammates who were around him who were good or who he wanted to be better. You know, it was almost like he took it personally and he carried it on and off the court. I mean, even at the end when they win, they beat, I think it was when they beat Indiana at the end, one of these last episodes, you can see how he's kind of received by his teammates when he's going around the room. And I don't know, I feel like we've all had teammates like that. You know, you see little bits of your teammates in him, which is cool to do it kind of from our angle.
Yeah, his competitive nature was crazy. I think I remember him saying that he was at the US national team camp when he was preparing for a game, and he used to clash with a lot of the players. And on the team bus, like the first 2 minutes after the practice, there was a lot of tension building up, and kind of just being that way and hard on his teammates and demanding that discipline and that hard work from them created a lot of conflict. But in the end, he gained a lot of respect from that. I think after the 2 minutes, all the players started laughing after training, and they kind of got over it because they understood that there's on the field and then off the field. And then I think it was in reception at the US national team camp. Someone asked him, who's taking the last shot? And he said, I'm taking the last shot. And that really stuck with me, just that self-belief, that positivity and that kind of mindset that I think was something that distinguished him from the rest and made him kind of progress even further. There was a point later on where he was doing 3-point shots with his teammates, and his teammates were buzzing when he made one. He was just sat on the side, like on the bench, just like laughing at it all. And then he comes to take his shot and he just throws it up and he's just chilling and he goes in and he's like, yeah, and like I knew I was going to do it. And then that competitiveness goes into other aspects, like even when he was playing coin toss with his security guards, and he was, I don't know really the game, but he was throwing the coin against the wall and it was whoever gets the closest. And he was like, he said something like, yeah, it's not about winning the money or getting the money from people that I know. It's just knowing that I took their money. And that's kind of just the mindset, just that competition and knowing that you're just beating them and taking, you know, that.
Yeah, I thought it was, I mean, like Jeff asked, how much do we know about like Jordan growing up? And I never watched him. I didn't know like anything about him, and I never had watched one of his games. So this documentary was like really big for me because it was the first time I ever got to like get the backstory of him and everything. And I used to get in huge arguments with some of the older guys in Salt Lake saying like, I used to think that LeBron was like head and shoulders above Michael. Cause I was like, imagine LeBron James playing against the guys that he had to play against. Like, it'd be unfair. And now that I see, you know, what I saw through The Last Dance, I think my mind is just so like switched. I'm like so Michael now, because it's like his dedication, competitiveness, like I remember when he took the last shot to win the NBA Finals, he was like, all his teammates were literally saying like, what was my role in that play? To just get the fuck out of the way. Like, just get out of the way and let Michael do his thing, which is like insane. So I don't know. I think yeah, it's such a good documentary. I'm so glad that like ESPN did that. And yeah, it's just crazy respect for him as an athlete.
I think it's awesome. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that one of the things that obviously stands out to me, like from it was probably like episode like 3 or 4, and obviously they're talking to Kobe, right? Obviously before he's passed, and you know, they're talking to Kobe and they're interviewing him, and you know, he's kind of, you know, giving some of the, not the secrets, but saying like, listen, Mike, you know, he didn't talk to anybody, he didn't talk to any of the players, didn't give anything away to anybody, but he took me under his wing, and I would call him at any time of the day, any time of the night. I would text him this and that. He'd give me advice. He'd give me like little keys to look for, little plays, you know, to make me a better player. And so he's like, when people ask me, you know, who's better, you know, are you better, Kobe, or you know, who's better between you and Michael? Who's the greatest? And Kobe's answer to that was, there's no Kobe without Michael. You know, and so that right there, I mean, you know, he's looking at what that advice that Michael Jordan gave to him, and it's like, listen, if he's not around, then I'm not who I am. I'm not the player I am. And so, you know, it's funny you say that, Brooks, right? Because obviously, you know, the next generation, they talk about Kobe, and the current generation, they talk about LeBron. And it's like this documentary, I think, obviously for the younger generation, they open up so many eyes to say like his competitiveness, just his will to win. I mean, you know, when you think about the games and the battles that they had with Detroit, and Detroit was like, listen, we turned it into a brawl. And it was anytime he was in the lane, he ended up on the floor. And it was, we're just going to smash him. And I mean, nowadays, obviously the rules in the NBA has changed, and it's a little bit more catered and whatnot. But I mean, back then it was like, to a certain extent, it was like street ball, and you know, you drive in the lane and somebody comes smashing down on you, and it was, oh yeah, just a normal foul. And nowadays, right, that's a flagrant, and you know, all sorts. And so it's funny listening to the younger generation kind of change their perception of, you know, the GOAT, if you will. And obviously, whether it's Kobe, whether it's LeBron, you know, Michael takes the cake.
Yeah, you know his personality as well. I mean, even if you were put on the floor with players of this generation, his personality would eat them up. And I think the coolest thing was, and I've seen it, this is what I say, when watching it the whole time, all I was doing was thinking of teammates that I've had, and thinking about experiences that I've seen, and thinking about the guys that were the alpha dogs, you know, like you talk about the dream team. And Michael had to assert his dominance. He wanted to be the alpha of the alphas. But at the same time, when you're dealing with those kind of teammates, you have certain players that stood up to him. Steve Kerr's the perfect example. And Steve Kerr got his clock cleaned. But after that moment, he gained that respect. And Michael, who clearly wanted to be the best and wanted to have the game in his hands, also knew that he could rely on somebody and was going to make whatever choice needed to be made to win the game. And I thought that was great. The one other part that really stuck with me, and I thought that it can shine through his whole life, was the beginning of episode 10, when the guy who wrote his biography said how present he is. You know, he's always there. He's not somewhere else. He's not in the hotel room. He's not on the plane. He is on the court with the cards in his hand, with the cigar in his mouth. He is always in that moment. And I feel like that's probably one of the key things to his success, is that in every moment he's right there, and you can't win without that.
Yeah, no, for sure. For me, I like the right at the very end of episode 10, when they kind of show clips from when the moment he just got drafted. He was like, yeah, I'm hoping to turn the Bulls into one of the biggest teams in the world and have the opportunity. And then go like fast forward into the actual last bit of the documentary, basically. And then he said, it started with hope. All I needed was, I have it right here. Start with hope. Jordan said of the Bulls, we went from a crap team to one of the best team all-time dynasties. All we needed was one little match to start the whole fire. And it just shows you that it starts with hope. And if you have a sense of belief in something, that with hard work, with competition and having that competitive edge will kind of transform into, one of the biggest teams, of course.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can see in the documentary, especially when they showed that clip of like that, when they were doing sprints and Jordan was the first to do, he was first to finish every single time. And yeah, he was the one that was pushing, he was the alpha male. So he was the one pushing, everyone. He knew he was the best. Everyone knew he was the best, but they all, I think, respected him a ton because they knew that he was putting in 10 times the amount that, they were. So he had the right to do, those things. And yeah, he just sacrificed more than the others so that when he, when you see that he lost, like when he lost the NBA finals, I think twice, I want to say in that span of the 6 championships, he was devastated. Like he was just so torn apart. And that's just because he was sacrificing so much more than every other person that it just affected him that much more than, the guy next to him. So that's why, when they were saying, we're actually glad that we lost those championships because that fueled his fire to be able to come back the next year and just completely dominate.
Yeah, I mean, for me, he knew, what you saw with Grover and everything, he knew that he was asking so much from his teammates. So the only way to get a response in my mind is to do them things actively yourselves and then hope that your teammates follow. I mean, like Jeff said about the start, that leadership takes a hit if you're constantly asking a lot. And a lot of teammates did have a little bit of negative energy towards him just because he was so fierce and he was such a competitor. But at the same time, if he didn't replicate what he was saying, then I don't think that he would have been able to get that kind of team atmosphere. I mean, when you go towards the end of the documentary, I really felt that it was more of an individual basis at the start, and then at the end, it was more of a team thing. Everyone was working, everyone was getting past the difficulties that they had in their life. I think it was the guy that took the shot against Utah Jazz. I forgot his name. He had something pretty bad happened to him in the past, but he kind of worked through it like Jordan worked through his father's death, and they all together succeeded as a team. The other thing I would add to that is when they went with Tim Grover after getting smashed up by the Pistons, they all went and did training in the off season and that, and he kind of led that kind of new team, new era where the guys were a lot bulkier and they worked all break instead of going on the vacations with the family. And I think that was something that really stuck out and was a pivotal part in the success of the new kind of team.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with him, and I'm sure we've all had teammates that might push you and do extra work, but Michael always followed it up with performance, right? It was always happening on the field. Whenever it was a shot or a big game, I mean, Brooks, he never lost in the finals, like they lost in the playoffs, but he never lost in the finals. So it's being able to back it up, and that's also leadership too. That's kind of not necessarily silent leadership. You're not doing it with words, but you're willing your team to win, and that kind of, if you do it in every aspect of your job, then it always pays off at the end.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, listen, Laurence, you're talking, when you talk about, at the beginning it was individual, and obviously towards the end it was more of a team effort, right? I think he realized as he matured as an individual, as a leader, that his legs weren't going to carry him, especially over the course of playing so many minutes for whatever circumstances. And that's when all the little things, the beat downs in training that he was given to guys, he needed those guys to step up in big moments. And so, you talk about the Utah game, and it was Steve Kerr. He kicks it out to Steve Kerr, and you could see how genuinely happy he was at the final whistle when they're standing kind of on like the commentator's box. I think I think it was the commentator's box, and they're looking over the crowd, and he's like, yes, like he's so happy for him because he knew he had it in him to do it. And, time and time again, he's beating him down. He's saying, all these negative things and all these like insults to guys. And when the time comes, it's like, bang, he delivers, and he's like, yes. Not only does he earn Michael's respect and trust, but obviously Michael now is massively appreciative of what he put into those practices when he's getting verbally abused and mentally beat down. He rose to the challenge, and then he delivers such a clutch shot to ultimately win the game in the series and in the finals, right? And so to see that part, at the same time he's beating guys down, but then when it comes full circle, you win and everything's great, and we all know, you've been there, right? It's easy to celebrate when you win and everything's going well. But you see him put his arm around him, you see how genuinely happy he is. That part was cool as well.
Yeah, I love the part in, I think it's one of the earlier episodes when he was like, I always have to be 100% every game because there could be someone who paid good money to watch me and it was the first time watching me. So I think putting yourself under pressure to perform like that and looking at it in that way, I think is what, made him perform at that level, throughout, his career. I think it's a funny way to look at it, actually, knowing that, of course, everybody knows how big of a player he is and everybody knows how amazing a player Michael Jordan is. But for him to think, there's someone that's coming to watch me today that never watched me before, so I have to perform, and to show him that I'm the greatest of all time is a great way to look at it.
I think, coming off the back of that, Mo, when you have that mentality, right? I mean, I think that's part of the mentality that helped him become a world icon. You know what I mean? Like when you look at, when they travel to Paris, yes, the Bulls are playing, but it's the Michael Jordan show. Everyone's there to see MJ. It's funny, right? Like seeing some friends now, right, from England, and seeing what they're posting about back in the day when he was in Europe, when he had visited England for probably an exhibition game. They're posing with pictures with him, and they're posing with pictures, and then they're telling like a little story. And I don't know if you guys saw the story. Did you see? I think it might have been Gary Lineker, and he was like, "Did you see
whatever makes you feel uncomfortable?"
Exactly. Yeah. Like just seeing these types of stories, man, it's so cool. Like, so if you guys didn't see it, so basically Michael Jordan wanted to play golf, and he was in London. He wanted to play golf at this, private golf course, and you could only get in if you played with a member. And so Gary Lineker's agent, calls him up and says, hey, Michael Jordan wants to play golf, blah, blah, blah. Do you want to play with him? He's like, yeah, of course. Play tomorrow morning. I'll be the member and I'll play with him. So they end up getting another member to play because there's two foursomes that are going to play, right? Jordan's got all these other people that are going to play with him. So they're teeing off, and Gary Lineker says to him, let's make this interesting. Let's put a bet on the golf, right? So which is music to MJ's ears, and he's like, so what do you want to bet for? And Michael Jordan's response was, whatever makes you uncomfortable. And Gary Lineker goes, I knew I lost the round right there. He's like, I was so far, he was in my head. I couldn't perform whatsoever. And just hearing like little stories like that, man, it's, just what made him this world icon of, his competitiveness, his, performances, obviously with clutch shots. Just seeing these types of stories from around the world is pretty remarkable. Like you said, Jeff, I don't think anyone aside from maybe Messi can carry themselves in today's world like he did.
The best players want the pressure, The best players want the ball in their hands. They want that last second shot. And I grew up hating Reggie Miller. And as a commentator, I think he's outstanding, and I've kind of softened on him because of that. I think he does a great job. And then seeing him in the documentary gained a new respect, because I couldn't think of a guy who wants the ball in their hands nearly as much as Michael, but I'd have to say that Reggie's pretty close. And you talk about being on the golf course, you want the pressure, you want the guy to think about missing that putt. I think that's kind of what Michael was all about, and seeing Reggie in these last couple episodes and the amount of respect. How many times behind the curtain do you see Michael and Reggie? You see Michael and Karl Malone, that level of respect these competitors kind of showing it to each other is so much fun to see.
How about when he hammered Larry Bird when they were behind the curtains, coming out of the mix zone during the press conference? Magic Johnson the same. Just unbelievable. I mean, these are some people would argue that these guys are the best ever to play the game. And to hear what they talk, to hear how they talk about Michael Jordan. I mean, there's no doubt, right?
No, there's zero doubt. I mean, even the little trivia questions they would put in between, the commercial breaks. How many all-time greats did Michael put out of the playoffs? 20. Did it to Patrick Ewing 4 times. I mean, that says it all. Michael, I don't know him at all, but I know that he goes to bed thinking about that stuff and smiling every time he pulls on that cigar,
For sure. I remember I was at quick story. We were at a soccer camp, like a goalie soccer camp up at Northern Illinois at a college campus. And there was a basketball camp going on at the same time. And so it was like an overnight soccer camp and an overnight basketball camp. I wasn't doing the overnight part. So every morning I'd go up there. I was doing baseball as well. Right. So anyway, both of his sons were at the camp. And so they weren't doing the overnight either for probably security reasons. I'm guessing. I don't know why. But his wife at the time with their daughter, she would come and she would eat breakfast with all the other kids as well as his 2 sons. And everyone was like, who's that? And she had this huge gold 23, diamond 23 inside of this gold heart. And everyone's like, who is this? Blah, blah, blah. And then as the week goes on, word gets out, it's Michael Jordan's kids. That's his wife, da, da, da. So his 2 kids are in the finals of their little week-long tournament. And so it's a Friday, morning or whatever it is, maybe lunchtime, afternoon. And like I said, his sons are in the final. All of a sudden, I think it was a black Lamborghini. And he cruises up, right, with Escalades in front and back. And we're coming back from our morning session, going to the cafeteria to have lunch. And he steps out of the car. And all the campers were meant to be going this way to the cafeteria, and the basketball gym's this way. And so we're all this way. We all see that he steps out of his car. The entire soccer camp, coaches are trying to stop the kids, right? Bunch of 13, 14-year-olds. All of a sudden, the whole camp just go whoosh. They all run make a beeline, surround his car. Security's stepping in, kind of pushing these little kids away. And it was just you're looking at this as a God figure. You know what I mean? It was one of the coolest things ever, just to kind of see him somewhat up close, right? 30 feet away sort of thing. It was just
and he's huge, right? I went to my dad took me to a Pro-Am golf tournament that he was playing in. And at one point he got close to us. He was maybe 50 yards away. And I ran up to him, not up to him. I couldn't even get close because he was surrounded by kids. But yeah, he's just enormous. And
for sure.
You just feel, his electricity when you're in his presence. It's cool.
For sure.
Go ahead.
Go. No, go.
Okay. I would say, this is a bit of a different take, but I would say because there wasn't social media and because there wasn't that platform for him to get himself out there, and because this documentary's come out, because we're in kind of the modern day now, I think a lot of images and videos and kind of footage and things that we weren't really able to get close to is now being re-emerged into public space, onto Instagram. You're seeing pictures here, pictures there, and different stuff, and everyone's pulling all this footage up right now. And now it's kind of allowing for him to kind of even blow up even more so now. I mean, yes, I can't even speak about the past, and obviously he was a classical, figurehead in world sport. But I think now, just with the increased media attention and stuff like that, and the ability to kind of transcend it through the world, now is kind of gaining even more steam.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, similar to kind of what you were saying, right? Because there wasn't social media, back in the day, there's almost this mysteriousness about him, and people were so intrigued by obviously his play on the court, and just what he was about as a player. Not many people knew kind of his private life. You know, of course, as technology advanced and you know, as he got into the later part of his career, of course, you know, certain things start to come out. But you know, you just see the impact he had without social media. You know, can you imagine what it would be like, you know, if he was playing today with social media? I mean, it would be insane, right? And so, yeah, I just think, you know, without it back in the day, there was just this, you know, everybody wants to see him. Everybody wants to watch him play. Everyone wants to read about him. Everyone wants to, what is he doing? And you know, the only way to kind of find out was either obviously watch the news or try and go to a game if possible. It was, you know, that mysteriousness, I think, certainly played a part in a factor of kind of his heroism, if you will.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, obviously don't know because I never grew up, you know, watching Michael or whatever. But like you said, Brad, like that unknowing figure, you know, you have no idea where he is or, you know, what he's doing or in his private life and stuff like that. So the only time that you can go and see him is literally you have to go to like a Bulls game. And that's why, like, in the documentary, you see like fans literally crying, like when they're seeing him, which is like just crazy to imagine. And I also think like it might have helped him, Manny, in terms of like not having social media. Maybe that helped him in terms of just like day-to-day life and not, you know, because nowadays like LeBron and Kobe, you know, when Kobe was playing, you know, obviously social media is super big and you can get into you can go into like dark holes when you're that big, you know, because you're just getting slammed sometimes on social media. So maybe it did help him, and the only time that he read something was either on the TV or in the newspaper.
Yeah, I think just going off what you said, Brooks, like I remember there was one, you know, like a footage in the documentary where he was in his room with a cigar in the hotel room, and then the kind of the camera crew came in, and then he was like, "This is the only time, you know, I get to have my piece. Thanks for ruining it," like jokingly. But I do think, of course, it would have been more stressful for him, especially with all the gambling, you know, the addiction stuff that was coming out about him. It would have, although like for him, for example, like when he blocked the media out for a little bit, but imagine right now with the social media, that would have been much worse, I think, in his case. But in terms of as a positive influence, of course, you know, I think people crave content, especially fans. You know, you see LeBron James now putting out all of his training stuff like that. But I don't know if Jordan would have did that. I think he's like one of those guys that likes to work in silence, you know. He would like you to think that he ain't doing much, but then he's just grafting in the gym. So it's, yeah, it would have been, you know, nice to see what he would have been like in today's kind of today's day and age.
Yeah, I don't think he would have been a part of it, you know, just knowing what I know of him. And, you know, I think that even he, like you said it earlier, Mo, the only thing that was important to him was what he was doing on the court, you know? And I think that he knew that his performances spoke for themselves, and I don't think he would have probably gotten caught up in that. I think that it was maybe the front half of the documentary, maybe episode 3 or 4, when someone was speaking about, you know, it's difficult to be Michael Jordan. And it showed the footage of every time he opened the door, there was crowds of people waiting for him. You know, I don't know why he would want to invite any more of that into his life. And you can see as he's walking onto the court for practice, you know, when they're in Utah or wherever they are, he immediately becomes himself, you know, and that's kind of his sanctuary. And I think that everything else he would want to block out and just look to focus on what's on the court. Because like you said, he's in the hotel room and this is it. It's the only time I get to be myself. I thought it was amazing how when they won the championship, they came back to the hotel and they were all still wearing their uniforms and stuff.
That's great.
But yeah, the hotel was full of people. I mean, obviously that was after the championship game, but I don't think it was much different otherwise. I mean, Brad and I just told a story how as kids we ran up to him from 50 yards away. I mean, that's happening every day of his life. So I feel like social media is the digital experience of people running up to you all day long. So I think he
I'll
would
tell
have
you
been.
one thing though, I would have liked to see how Dennis Rodman would have used social media. To see, and I don't know if it would have helped him or not.
His life was already exposed, dude. He was basically
Exactly.
social media before it was real.
For sure.
I also love when they won the championship and Michael was going back in the hotel and he had a cigar and he's like, I hope my room's like smoking friendly. Like,
Is this the smoke-free floor? He said it is now, or the smoking floor that is now.
Oh, good.
So great.
The best. Sorry, just thinking about funny lines was when Tex Winter pops into the locker room and he's like, "What's up with those shoes? I don't want you slipping out there tonight." And Michael said, "Don't worry about me slipping. The only thing I'm gonna be slipping is a ring on your finger at the end of the game."
Sure. I love it.
That made me laugh out loud. That was maybe one of my favorite parts of the whole thing.
Oh, good.